DC Comics has a huge gallery of superheroes, and while superheroes exist as works of fiction, that doesn't mean that nerds on the internet, like you and me, won't sit and contemplate why none of these superpowers make any sense at all. For example, we got Rainbow Girl. The Legion of Superheroes seems to just be a sticky flytrap for all the random and wacky superheroes out in the universe. Unlike a lot of others, Rainbow Girl didn't actually make it onto that team as her powers were deemed not useful enough. She just tried out, got rejected, and instead she made it onto the Legion of Substitute Heroes, which I'm assuming is the Legion that villains either don't listen to or the Legion that just puts on a movie for villains instead of fighting them. Rainbow Girl can harness the whole emotional spectrum: red for rage, orange for green, yellow for fear, green for will, blue for hope, indigo for compassion, and violet for love. But unlike the lanterns of each of those different emotional colors, Rainbow Girl has no ring to use the power through. She can just kinda do it. The problem is she just cycles through the colors impulsively, leading to terrible mood swings. Not only was this incredibly offensive, having a female hero whose main thing is awful mood swings, but it kind of makes, no sense. There is no real explanation for why her powers are the way they are, and there's no explanation for why she has mood swings or how she even uses her powers with no lantern ring to do the stuff that the rings do. Now, Wally West is easily the fastest of all the speedsters out there. He has an almost spiritual connection to the Speed Force that allows him to do a great number of things, like traveling through time to creating electrical energy constructs. Thanks to a heart condition of all things, Wally has even been able to freeze time, which basically allows him to move at super speed without actually moving at super speed. And if you can explain to me exactly how that works, then I'll give you $1 single, because that's probably all I have. Now, the Speed Force is basically time, the representation of reality in motion, being the very cosmic force that pushes space and time forward. So how is it that people like Wally can hold chunks of it, create lightning constructs with it, absorb speed and momentum from people or things? As a concept for time, a cosmic force, it is really hard to both wrap your head around and explain the Speed Force and all the things that speedsters like Wally West and Barry Allen are able to do with it. You kinda just have to accept it for what it is. Sorry. Alec Holland was a scientist who created a restorative growth formula before being doused in the chemical by gangsters and set on fire. He jumped into a nearby swamp and was reborn as the Swamp Thing. Eventually, it was revealed that Alec Holland had actually passed away that night, and the creature that emerged from the swamp was a humanoid plant elemental creature with Alex's memories. Regardless, the Swamp Thing is basically a god. An earth elemental and avatar of the green, essentially a god of plants with unimaginable levels of superhuman strength, durability, and inability to feel pain. He can regenerate from plant life, he can move at the speed of light, alter his size drastically, shapeshift to grant himself abilities like flight and duplication, he has control over plants which allows him to teleport through plant life as well, and thanks to his connection to the green, he can even move through time, and possesses cosmic awareness, and he can even possess other humans, all from a restorative growth formula, a fire, and jumping into a swamp. Now, a whole lot of superheroes have similar origin stories, and I mean, let's be honest, how many different ways can you realistically come up with for someone to gain superpowers that actually make sense? Not a lot, I bet. Lots of superheroes have created the source of their own powers with science. Hourman was the first example of this in the DC universe. Rex Tyler created the Miraclo pill that gave him superhuman strength and durability for an hour each day. Just 1 hour. The fact that it only works for an hour is just odd on its own. Was that the limit of what he was able to do? How did he make that a trait of a pill? Why does it take exactly 60 minutes for the pill to wear off? How does it boost strength and hardness of his skin? What happens to the extra mass? Why didn't he just modify it to always work, if not by himself, then by using other people's research? Why was it physically addictive? I have questions, Hourman, and it may take more than an hour for you to answer them, so I hope that's okay. Some of our heroes' powers really only come to light or become useful in very specific situations, and some literally only appear in key events, never to be seen again. For Justice League founding member Aquaman, an example of that kind of power came during the Brightest Day crossover event which followed the awesome Blackest Night. In Blackest Night, Aquaman was one of a bunch of heroes and villains that were resurrected from the underworld to become members of the Black Lantern Corps. After their defeat, the remaining heroes superheroes and villains who returned to the land of the living had to now find their purpose. Aquaman was returned with the purpose of both saving Aqualad and preventing a war between Atlantis and Zabel. Now Arthur found that since he was resurrected to serve as a member of the Black Lantern Corps, he was now able to summon undead sea life to come to his aid. Trust me when I say that it is much cooler than you might expect. I guess if you kind of suspend reality a little bit, it can sort of make sense, but is he resurrecting that sea life? Is he just controlling their lifeless bodies? When Aquaman controls fish, I thought it was like a telepathic thing, but now I'm kind of thinking that he's just forcing their little fish bodies telekinetically to do what he wants, which is creepy. Beast Boy is the comedic relief of the Teen Titans. His ability to transform into animals is perfect for jokes and for their awesome battles, but because he is a bit of a silly little guy, I feel like DC kind of decided that how he got his powers and why they are the way they are just doesn't really need a ton of explanation. Beast Boy gained his powers from what his wiki describes as, and I'm not joking, an unspecified incident. Another origin says that he gained his powers through a blood transfusion from a green monkey and gained the ability to change into any type of animal. Now, shapeshifting is a power that doesn't really make sense at all. Like, where does the extra mass come from or go to when they shapeshift? That's one that applies to all shapeshifters, but for Beast Boy, why does he only turn into animals? What keeps him from shapeshifting into humans? Now, it will be explained that his shapeshifting is a part of his connection to the mystical force known as the Red, but other characters that are connected to the Red simply use the abilities of other animals. I love Beast Boy, so whatever, but it's still kinda weird. First ever appearing in the back pages of the very first issue of Sensation Comics of 1942, which also contained the premiere of Wonder Woman, the original Mr. Terrific, and the Atom, Ted Grant is one of the world's best hand-to-hand fighters, particularly when it comes to boxing, being the one to train several other DC fighters, including Batman. Ted's dad, Henry Grant, had taught and trained him so well that Ted became a Wildcat in the ring. He eventually goes on to become a superhero named Wildcat. Cool, love it, simple. Wait, what do you mean that he gained 9 lives? So basically, while Ted spent a good chunk of his career technically powerless, eventually Wildcat was cursed by King Inferno and Zatara. You gotta love when curses actually are more like blessings though. Zatara's curse halted Ted's aging process and gave him an extra 9 lives, like this is a video game or something. It's a pretty neat curse to be able to pull off, and in fact it's so good it kinda makes you wonder why Zatara wouldn't just give it to himself or his loved ones. Next up, it's Hawkman, just the whole character. His origins have changed many different times over the character's comic book existence. In his original 1940 origin, he is Egyptian royalty who has been reincarnated throughout time as a variety of different heroes before eventually becoming the archaeologist Carter Hall. When he was reintroduced in 1961, he was now an alien cop from the planet Thanagar named Qatar Hole, who comes to Earth and takes on the secret identity of Carter Hall. 2 years later, we learned that these two different versions are actually multiversal variants of each other, with the alien living on Earth 1 and the original being on Earth 2. Then in 1986, the Crisis on Infinite Earths happens and all the worlds are combined into one, so these two people were now both Hawkman at different points in history, with the original operating in the 40s and the alien operating in the 80s. In 1994's Zero Hour, these two become just one person. Then in 2011, Hawkman is, and always has been, a space cop from Thanagar. And then in 2017, Carter Hall was now a pharaoh who reincarnates because the knife that he was hard deleted with in ancient Egypt was made of nth metal from a Thanagarian ship. And then finally in 2018, it's decided that he can just reincarnate not just on Earth, but on different planets as well. And all of his powers are because of that nth metal, which itself makes no sense. Ronnie Raymond was a jock in high school who was also, funnily enough, also an environmentalist. When Ronnie showed up to protest the opening of a new nuclear power plant, he met Dr. Martin Stein, a Nobel Prize winning physicist who worked there. When the Firestorm Matrix reactor malfunctioned thanks to one of Ronnie's compadres, Stein and Raymond were both caught in the radioactive aftermath and somehow found themselves fused together into Firestorm, the nuclear man. Now, the two men are a being with two minds sharing the same body, usually with Raymond taking the lead. Alongside the rather unique one man with two minds thing, Firestorm also gained the ability to transmute any non-organic matter, having complete control over molecules molecules. With this ability, he can do many things that honestly don't make a ton of sense. While regeneration, self-sustenance, density manipulation, shapeshifting, and all that makes sense given his molecular abilities, where it starts to fall apart for me personally is being able to walk through walls, because it's not like he's making his molecules intangible. He also has nuclear powers, which feels kind of unnecessary, and there's a few more things he can do that just push the boundary just a tiny bit. He's an incredibly powerful all-around character, but I think DC did him a disservice by making him kind of able to do anything at all and explaining it away as an added benefit of the accident that made him. Or them. Or him. I'm gonna go with him. And last up today, Superman has gone through a lot of changes during his time in DC Comics. While we now know what his powers are, and they rarely change except for when they get like augmented or there's some kind of solar radiation ability, when he first showed up, his powers were still being developed by DC, and he went from being strong enough to pick up a car, leaping 1/8 of a mile, outrunning an express train and being mostly bulletproof, to flying faster than light, having enhanced strength, developing super hearing, x-ray vision, telescopic vision, heat vision, and being able to withstand an atomic blast. It was when we got to the Silver Age though that writers kind of started to run out of challenges for the character. So they started to create stories where the character would develop a new, very specific power that he would have for just one issue and it would almost never be seen again. Unsurprisingly, that on its own makes no sense. But sometimes the powers themselves made even less sense. For example, some of the one-issue powers Superman was granted included, and I'm not joking, super ventriloquism, super weaving, super hypnosis, and shooting literal tiny action figure-sized doppelgang versions of himself out of his hands that would fight crime as well. This is a guy who has dragged tons of planets all connected by a chain, so I guess there's really no point in trying to explain anything about Superman and what he can and can't do. But that's everything I have. Thank you guys so much for watching today here on Top 10 Nerd. I am Adam Andrews. I'll catch you all on the flippy flop. Until then though, stay safe and peace out, nerds.